One of the most powerful mini attractants that you can have on your land this year and that you could have on your land extending into hunting season is a deer waterhole. And I want to talk about how to hunt a deer waterhole. But first, I want to talk about why a deer is even using that waterhole in the first place. Deer get most of their moisture and meet most of their moisture requirements for drinking water through what they eat, especially the greens. That's why I strongly advocate among other reasons, having greens all hunting season long. You can imagine when corn's down to 12–13% at the end of November, and as far as moisture, and soybeans have very little moisture at that time. In ag land, and when the alfalfa is frosted out, there's just not a lot of moisture out there. But if you have brassicas that are highly moisture, full of moisture, and you have peas, even have rye, oats, clover, whatever you have that's still green going in through the hunting season can meet the needs of the moisture requirements for deer on a daily basis. They don't even need to take a drink. What I find though is that mature bucks in general, when it's getting into the rut, they start hitting that water and they need their moisture requirements go up, and the water hole makes a perfect spot to hunt during the hunting season, during deer season, for deer that are seeking the moisture, and especially when bucks are elevating the moisture requirements when they're running and rutting and cruising, even leading up to the rut. I find a great place for a water hole is between bedding areas or between a bedding area and a food source. There's no reason for you to put water at a food source when a lot of times those food sources that you should be planting on your property anyways are already meeting the moisture requirements of the local deer herd. This is a perfect example of a water hole and how to hunt a water hole, how to hunt this deer water hole going in through the hunting season. Keep in mind, again, this is a reclusive area. We get a lot of mature buck pictures throughout the entire hunting season, even in through January and February. Get a lot of buck pictures, and they're moving through this area. We have 2 stands to take advantage of this, and especially as it gets into the pre-rut, in the rut, and those bucks are craving water at that time. It's on the way to food. Food's about 150 yards away. So we can get into either of these 2 stands locations right here very easily without spooking deer, because even if the deer are coming and hitting this water right here, they're only here for a quick stop and then they're on the way through. In fact, what's interesting is we have a mock scrape right here. And this is one of our favorite mock scrapes that we get a lot of pictures on throughout the years. And this mock scrape, we have a camera that watches it all right here. Dylan's probably playing some footage of bucks coming in and hitting this mock scrape. What's interesting, if they come in and take a drink here, a lot of times they're already exposed. We get a 10–15 second clip of them, and it's not enough to get them. Sometimes you see them stick their head down the water. You don't even realize there's a water hole right there. If they hit the mock scrape, we've already got the clip. They might move on and get a drink afterwards or before. But even with the mock scrape, this is a 2 or 3 minute stop at best. We find that it's probably more like 30 seconds on average, 20 seconds. So when we want to get into that stand location that's way up there, it seems like it's a long ways away. It's just that it's high. You know, the tree starts probably 15 foot in elevation above this location, 20 foot in elevation, and then the tree stands up 20 feet. And then also we have the stand down below right here. This is great for morning winds because we can blow our scent off to a non-deer area back in the hollow over here with thermals lifting up. This is great for evening over here. As long as the winds are settling down this way, which we just need something southerly, then that's a perfect stand and access and location for evening, for morning up here, different wind types. And we're watching this water hole. We're in a remote location. We're looking for cruising bucks. We're looking for bucks that are a little bit active. They just hit a big rub over here. In fact, Dylan and I found a giant rub over here in the wintertime. It's just beautiful. So I can imagine a buck working that rub, hitting a couple scrapes, and then coming here. He's a little thirsty. He takes a drink. Again, we're in a very remote location. We have at least 100 gallon. This is a 110 gallon tank. You don't want to provide a 20 gallon tank, a 40 gallon tank. It's just not enough to hold. And if the water hole is the only reason that they're coming through here and that water hole dries up, then what I find, even when you put water back in, they're in a different pattern. They might not hit the water for 2 or 3 weeks. Hunting a water hole is outstanding. A lot of people think, well, the early season when it's hot, yes, they do hit them sometimes, but think about it. especially in ag, they have soybeans and they have alfalfa. It's lush and green, especially if they get that last cutting of alfalfa and it's sprouting out. Very green, very lush, and there's a lot of moisture that's met for their requirements down in those ag fields, so they don't need to hit the water. A lot of people say, well, they're not hitting my water. There's too many bugs in it. In fact, we just clean them out once a year and that's it. You want them to get stagnant, stale, that's the best. It seems like the deer like that warmer, murky, maybe nutrient-filled water. Whatever it is, we put a little bit of soil in the bottom of ours. It's always murky, it always looks ugly. But really, when it starts getting into mid-October and then late October, all of November, and imagine those bucks when they're cruising, they're establishing these patterns. So hitting that in the secondary rut when it gets in December is very common. We have a lot of deer that come in and they actually take their hooves and push on the ice and try to get water. We have footage of deer at night hitting the water. You can hear them breaking the ice and then actually drinking, taking a drink of water. How you hunt a water hole, if you're gonna set up a spot like this, make sure it's remote, it's not on a food source, in between bedding and food, in between bedding and bedding. Make sure you have potentially, and we do this a lot, multiple stand locations so you can take advantage of different winds, maybe morning and evening. Think about why deer are actually hitting water. We find that bucks hit water as much or more than does because they're rutting, they're moving a lot, they're cruising. You can always tell when the pre-rut starts hitting, which around here would be October 20th, in that range, because all of a sudden, deer that haven't been hitting a water hole, especially bucks, they suddenly start hitting the water mid-morning, middle of the day, early afternoon, because they're rutting and cruising and they're more active, and again, their moisture requirements heat up. That's when they take a drink. Make sure you have a couple stands to take advantage of it. Make sure it's not at a food source that's already attracting deer. That's how you hunt a deer water hole. We've been doing it since the early 2000s. It works. Make sure you have at least a 100-gallon tank. I'll emphasize that again. Or man-made small pond is great too. Deer water holes can be a great addition to your hunt this year. They're not going to attract more deer necessarily to your land, but they're going to define movement and make sure that you have a couple bow stands ready and waiting for that cruising monster that'll come through with his moisture requirements up and ready to take a drink, and you're ready to take a shot at him with your bow this fall.